No place for losers. That was exactly what my brother said to my face as he stood blocking the doorway on Christmas Eve. Behind him, the tree flickered warm gold, ornaments swaying slightly from the heat vent. My mother clutched her wine glass like it was keeping her upright, and my father stared at the hardwood floor as if it might swallow him. I stood there holding a bag of carefully wrapped gifts for Jacob's kids, presents I'd hunted down for weeks, comparing prices, tracking shipping, picking each one with the kind of attention people usually give to their own children. Jacob just smirked like he'd been waiting years to say those words out loud. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shed a tear. I only said, "You're right." Then I turned around and walked back into the icy night. Before midnight struck, I made one simple, silent decision that froze every automatic payment keeping his household upright. And by New Year's, the same brother who called me a loser was banging on my door, desperate. Stay with me and you'll see exactly how everything unraveled. I used to adore Christmas. The lights, the cinnamon candles on the windowsills, the way winter softened even the rough edges of our street. It used to feel like the one day of the year where peace was possible. But that illusion began cracking long ago, slowly, steadily, like the sound of ice stretching under your boots just before it splits. I grew up being the problem solver of the family. If something was overdue, I paid it. If someone was stranded, I drove across town. When Jacob and his wife Kelly slipped behind on their mortgage, I sent money before the panic could reach them. I told myself it was kindness. Maybe guilt. Maybe a twisted desire to be seen as the daughter who held everything together. My mother fed the role. "You've always been the dependable one," she'd say with that relieved smile, the kind parents use when they realize someone else will pick up the slack. My father rarely bothered with words. He just served Jacob another helping, another excuse, another chance. Eventually, I stopped noticing how much of myself I was pouring out. School fees, winter coats, dental bills, overdue utilities. When Jacob found himself unemployed again, I wired money without pausing to breathe. It was always easier to pay than to argue. In our house, generosity was the invisible chain, and love was the bait they dangled to keep me moving. This year was supposed to be different. I planned ahead for once, bought thoughtful gifts, requested time off work, even made the old sugar cookies my grandmother taught me to bake when I was little. I pictured a night filled with laughter, warmth, maybe even the beginning of forgiveness. Instead, I got Jacob's smirk and my mother's silence. No place for losers. Those words didn't just sting, they shifted something deep inside me. On the drive home, the car felt heavier than usual. The wrapped presents on the passenger seat glowed faintly under the streetlights like tiny reminders of how foolishly hopeful I'd been. By the time I parked, I wasn't crying. I wasn't even shaking. I was impossibly calm, the kind of calm that comes when truth hits you so clearly, it leaves no room for emotion. I wasn't part of a family. I was part of a system that only worked if I stayed quiet, stayed available, stayed giving. And this Christmas, that system finally collapsed. I didn't sleep that night. Jacob's words replayed again and again. No place for losers, each repetition sharper than the last. Jacob had insulted me before, but never like that. Never with the full blessing of the room behind him. The part that cut deepest wasn't him, it was my mother's silence, my father keeping his gaze on the floor. Their silence said everything. We agree with him. The next morning, I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table staring at the list I'd made a month earlier. Christmas budget, gift receipts, donations, school fees, grocery transfers. My own handwriting looked unfamiliar, like it belonged to a stranger who believed love could be purchased by staying useful. I traced each line slowly, realizing how tightly my life had wrapped around Jacob's convenience. Every bailout had dug me deeper into the role they expected me to play. Then something inside me gave way. Not anger, not grief, something older, heavier, exhaustion. The kind that fills you when you finally understand the rules of a game you didn't know you were playing. I opened my laptop and pulled up my accounts. The history stared back at me. Tuition transfers, winter coats, daycare, mortgage supplements, grocery top-ups. The amounts rose and rose like a timeline of my own erasure. I didn't slam the laptop. I didn't sob. I just started unbuilding the system, one click at a time. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Every automatic payment that had kept Jacob's household breathing was gone in under 5 minutes. 5 years undone in the time it takes to boil water. I waited for guilt to sink in. It didn't. Instead, a strange lightness filled the room as if someone had cracked open a window. Even the air felt different. By noon, I carefully packed the unused gifts into storage boxes and taped them shut. I didn't have the heart to throw them away, but I couldn't look at them either. Every ribbon felt like a confession of how far I've bent myself to stay included. That afternoon, Jacob texted me. "You could have at least dropped off the gifts." The kids were excited. I stared at the message, let the weight of it settle, then typed one simple word: no. He replied immediately, "What's your problem?" I didn't answer. Let silence speak for what words never could. Let silence speak for once. Jacob lasted 2 full days before his patience cracked. By the third morning, my phone pulsed nonstop. Calls, messages, voicemails. They started polite. "Hey, just checking in." Then urgent. "We're behind on rent. Kids need things." Finally angry. "You're selfish. You're messed up. You've changed." I watched every notification appear without opening a single one. It was surreal watching the truth reveal itself in real time. My value to them had never been emotional. It had been financial. When I stepped outside for work, the entire city was covered in a fresh layer of snow. It was bright, untouched, impossibly clean. For a moment, it made my chest ache. Even the coldest things can be beautiful when no one tramples them. That night, I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop again. Years of transactions lit the screen. Line after line of support I had given without hesitation. Mortgage assistance, camp fees, doctor visits, emergency groceries. I scrolled until the list blurred. This time, I didn't choke the resentment down. I let it sit. I printed everything. The papers came out warm, smelling faintly like closure and something close to freedom. Then I called the bank, confirmed everything, removed every link, changed every password. When the representative said, "All set," I felt a smile creep onto my face. Small, but real. By Friday afternoon, Jacob stormed into my office without warning, red-faced and puffing under his oversized winter coat. He didn't care about the receptionist's startled expression or the coworkers who suddenly pretended to type faster. "We need to talk," he spat through clenched teeth. "Not here," I said quietly, guiding him outside to the parking lot. The second the door clicked shut behind us, he turned on me. "You think you can just cut us off? The kids are suffering." "They're your kids," I said, and watched his eyes flare. He barked out a humorless laugh. "Oh, now you care about responsibility?" Something in me snapped in a new way. My voice didn't rise, it steadied. "You're right. I do care about responsibility. That's why I'm finally taking mine back." His face twisted with disbelief or rage, I still don't know which. "You can't do this." I already did. I walked away, the crunch of snow beneath my boots louder than his anger behind me. 3 days passed before he tried again. When my phone rang, I almost let it go to voicemail, but curiosity won. Jacob's voice sounded strained. "We need to talk about what?" "About what?" I cut in. "You know what. You've put us in an impossible spot. The kids, Kelly." "Don't use them," I said. He sighed loudly, theatrically. "Kelly's falling apart. The kids are upset. You used to care." "I still do care," I replied, calm to the point of stillness. That's why I stopped. For a moment, silence. Then he said, bitterly, "You're not the person I thought you were." I almost laughed. "No, I'm not your wallet anymore." He cursed under his breath and hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought silence would finally do its work. I was wrong. 2 nights later, someone started pounding on my front door, hard, fast. the kind of knocking that shakes the walls before you even reach the hallway. When I looked through the peephole, Jacob's face filled. It flushed and wild-eyed. I hesitated, but opened the door just enough to block it with my body. "What are you doing here?" He pushed his hand against the frame. "You need to stop this," he snapped. "You think cutting me off makes you some kind of hero? You're ruining my life." I crossed my arms. "You ruined your life just fine on your own." He stepped closer. "You have no idea what's happening. You can't just walk away from family." I almost smiled. "Family? Is that what we are now? You call me a loser, then remember I'm family when the bills show up." His jaw clenched. But before he could answer, Kelly's voice cut through the cold air from the sidewalk. "Jacob, stop." He froze. She was standing a few feet away, her coat half-zipped, her face pale. Behind her, the car engine hummed softly. "Kelly, go home," he barked. She didn't move. "No," she said quietly. "We're done." He turned, startled. "What are you talking about?" Her eyes flicked to me, then back to him. "I met with someone today. A lawyer." Jacob's face drained of color. "You what?" "I know what you've been doing," she said. "The gambling, the lies, the hidden account." For once, he was speechless. I didn't say a word. I just watched the pieces fall. Kelly stepped forward, voice shaking, but steady. "All those payments Jolie sent, the ones you said went to the kids, I saw the bank statements. You spent them at casinos." He spun toward me, his tone desperate. "You told her?" I shook my head. "Didn't have to." Kelly pulled a folder from her bag and held it up. "I did, and I gave copies to the lawyer. You can't hide it anymore." He lunged forward, but I stepped between them. "Don't," I warned. My voice didn't rise, but it carried enough weight to stop him. He stared at me, his breath coming fast. "You think you're better than me?" he said, his voice shaking. "You think this makes you righteous?" I took a slow breath, the cold biting my lungs. "No, it makes me free." He laughed again, but it cracked halfway through. "You'll regret this. You'll see what happens when I'm gone." Kelly's voice was soft but firm. "We already have." He looked between us, realizing for the first time that neither of us feared him anymore. Then he turned, shoved his hands into his coat pockets, and stormed off down the street. Kelly exhaled, trembling. I motioned her inside. She hesitated at the door like she wasn't sure she belonged. "Come in," I said gently. "You don't have to explain." Inside, the air was warm and still. I poured her tea, the cinnamon scent filling the room. She stared into the cup like she could see the years she had lost. "I should have said something that night when they called you a loser. You were surviving," I said. "I get it." Tears filled her eyes. "He kept saying you owed us, that you were lucky to have a family who needed you." I almost smiled at the irony. That's the thing about people like Jacob. They call it family when they're taking, and betrayal when you stop giving. She nodded slowly. "He's gone. I told him not to come home." "Do you have somewhere to stay?" She hesitated. "I'll figure it out." "You can stay here for now," I said. She looked up startled. "You do that?" "After everything, I'm not helping him anymore," I said softly, "but I'll help you." That night, while Kelly slept on my couch, I sat by the window watching the snow fall. The city was quiet, lights flickering through the white. For the first time in years, my apartment didn't feel empty. It felt earned. The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. "Mark," a man's voice said. "This is Mark Dawson. I'm Kelly's lawyer. She gave me your contact info." "Is she okay?" I asked. "She's fine," he said. "But there's something you should see. It concerns your brother's use of funds. I think you'll want to be involved." When I met Mark later that day, he slid a folder across the desk. Inside were printouts, bank transfers, withdrawals, casino receipts, hotel charges. My money had built his double life. "Kelly's moving forward with separation," Mark said. "She's asked me to inform you in case Jacob tries to reach out again." I closed the folder slowly. "If he does, I'll handle it." That evening, my phone lit up again. "Jacob." I let it ring, then silenced it. But the next call came seconds later, and the next until the buzzing became constant. Finally, I answered. "You ruined my family," he shouted. "She's leaving me because of you." "No," I said quietly. "She's leaving you because of you." He started to speak, but I interrupted. "Listen carefully. You used me. You lied and you called me a loser. You've lost your wife, your kids, your home, and your free ride. The only thing you still have is a choice. Stop or sink." There was a pause, a long, broken silence, and then a click. When I looked out the window, the snow had stopped. The world outside was still and clean again, like it had been waiting for this moment. By the end of the week, Kelly and the kids were gone. New state, new start. She texted me a photo of the boys building a snowman. Beneath it, she'd written, "Thank you for everything." I stared at the picture for a long time, smiling. For once, helping didn't feel like losing. It felt like winning, quietly. And Jacob, he didn't call again. But word traveled. He'd lost his job, defaulted on his mortgage, moved in with a friend who eventually kicked him out. He was still blaming everyone but himself. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post, didn't gloat. I just deleted the last of our shared accounts, folded the final statement, and whispered to no one in particular, maybe losers are just people who finally stopped paying for everyone else's mistakes. February came quietly, soft and gray. The holiday lights were long gone, leaving the streets bare and honest again. Kelly and the kids had settled into their new place up north. She sent small updates, photos of snowmen, messy pancakes, drawings taped to new walls. Each message felt like proof that she was breathing again. Jacob, on the other hand, had vanished into the kind of silence that follows a storm. My mother called once, her tone clipped and defensive. "You've made things difficult for your brother," she said. "He's not himself." I almost laughed. Maybe now he finally is. She didn't reply, just sighed and hung up. For the first time in my life, the guilt didn't stick. I'd spent years mistaking sacrifice for love, letting them drain me dry because I thought that's what good daughters did. But love isn't measured in money, and family isn't defined by who you keep rescuing. I started sleeping better. The air in my apartment felt lighter, the quiet no longer sharp. On weekends, I walked past the bakery where my mother used to take us as kids. The smell of cinnamon didn't sting anymore. It reminded me that sweetness can exist without obligation. A week later, I got a letter from Kelly's lawyer, Mark, again. Inside was a thank you note in Kelly's handwriting. "We're safe now. You gave us that." I folded it and slid it into my desk drawer, next to the last photo I ever took of my family together. I didn't keep it out of nostalgia. I kept it as evidence of what survival looks like. One evening, as I watched the snow fall through the window, I realized I wasn't waiting for an apology. I didn't need one. Some stories end quietly, not with revenge, but with peace. Outside, a car passed, headlights sweeping across the glass. I caught my reflection in it, steady, calm, unrecognizable from the woman who once begged to belong. That was the night I understood the family I needed wasn't the one I lost. It was the one I finally built inside myself. A few weeks later, I dropped off the last box of Christmas decorations at the donation center. The clerk smiled and asked if I wanted a receipt. I told her no. I'd already kept what mattered, the lesson. Driving home, I passed my parents' street. Their house looked smaller now, like a stage set after the play was over. I didn't stop. I just slowed down long enough to notice the same porch light that once glared in my face that night. For a moment, I wondered if they still talked about me, if they called me selfish or heartless. Maybe they did. Maybe they always would. But I wasn't a loser. I was finally free.